Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning there. Oh man, I was reaching for my glass and I just bumped my screen. Hey, we could have a wild day today because rumor has it that Joe Biden has already selected his Federal Reserve chairman pick, which suggests to me that it's going to be Brainard. Brainard. Because if it was Powell, I think it would be later. So I think that we need to prepare ourselves for a dovish run here in the treasuries today. That said, we are at 1.62 in the treasury, and they are moving down. Yesterday was a pretty big bender of a day in the treasuries. In the end, I was a much larger move than I had anticipated. To the charts. So we'll look at that. Really big down move. You can see the yield curve, especially in the 2s and 10s, has been increasing. But even in the 30-year, it increased a little bit. So we're going to need to keep an eye on that if we see steepening on another bear steepener. That could be signs of that inflation has become unanchored or is going to become persistent, right? Oil up. I haven't really seen any news in oil, but in natural gas, the pipeline, the Nord pipeline, didn't meet some approval or something of that nature, and so natural gas is up pretty big overnight. So that could be a problem. Gold and silver got a little bit of a bump overnight and are now up to new highs. So that's looking pretty bullish there in silver and gold, man. While copper languishing a little bit. And then we come over here into currencies. Bitcoin dropping briefly below 60K. Really, I don't think that this action in Bitcoin is very good because one, it looks like when the market is concerned about inflation, people are actually leaving Bitcoin. Probably because they anticipate that the Federal Reserve will tighten policy, and they think that Bitcoin has been driven largely by easy money policy. But also maybe this risk event in November, right? With Mt. Gox. The dollar, though, is still up there above 95. In fact, I'm moving up to 95.5. Wow, that dollar just so strong. Just so strong, guys. So now here in about 5 minutes, we get retail sales month over month for October. We're looking for a reading of 1.2%. And that's going to be the big piece of news that I think will drive us for most of the rest of the week. That in Brainard. So that kind of puts us in a difficult position here in the treasuries because overall we want to be tilting, hawkish, bearish here on the treasury, long rates. But with Brainard about to be announced, I'm concerned that could lead to a bullish up run up. So I think that I'm going to need to be a little bit more cautious than usual, even for big news. We need to treat this like it's like non-farms payroll day, right? So one contract, keeping it really tight, right? Let's see here. I need to make sure financial juice is on here. No, I'm just been my. It's in the morning, you know. I got to like clean everything out, and my cheek is kind of shedding a little bit. That's why I've been. Good morning, Keller. So let's see what's going on in the Twitterverse. I know when they announced Brainard, I think you might see some chaos, even though the market is probably largely priced it in. I mean, it's like, oh, we're facing an inflation crisis. What do we do? Hey, I know. Let's replace the Federal Reserve chairman with a progressive. That'll certainly assuage their concerns. Brannigan thinks I'll just read it. On 7 occasions in 2021, Bitcoin had significant 3 standard deviations drop in price. And on the same day, what do you think U.S. equities did? They were down. So watch out for some long liquidation moves today in U.S. equities. Okay, maybe. I think that the news that is being bearish to Bitcoin, potentially bearish to Bitcoin, is potentially bearish to the S&P 500. Yes. Will Biden raise taxes or keep printing? Well, you got the infrastructure bill, but you got to remember that the infrastructure bill was paid by funds that were already allocated. Their other bill sounds like it's dead in the water, though. We should talk about Kyle later. Okay, they're definitely pulling for this retail sales. And slightly bearish, too. Yeah, okay. Well, no way we're touching it here in the micros. Okay. So I'm seeing 1.7 versus a forecast 1.2. Sorry, 1.4. So that is going to be slightly hawkish. But I mean, it's good. The S&P 500. The S&P 500 had a little bit of a whoop, but then now look, it's like not reacting. We're getting the dollar now. Yeah, okay. Now the dollar is a moving. It's a moving. And the 6J is getting punished, as is gold here. Could have just leaned into the momentum going into the news, but micros are liquidity in the micros is coming back okay. We could go long here if we really wanted. 130.080 was yesterday's lows. It's an area of major support. Now it was 1.7 versus 1.4. The marketeer asks, Bitcoin as the inflation hedge? ? They must be noticing, as have I, that it doesn't seem like Bitcoin has been doing so well when the word inflation is brought up. So they are below 08. They have pushed new lows. It's not too aggressive below there. There wasn't like a stop run or nothing. Or nothing. Come on, Seth. Learn how to speak. We should see some icebergs here. I would expect to see some icebergs here, but I'm really not. So it kind of looks like they're just trading it based off of the news. From the momentum, probably doesn't make sense to try and hold anything here. But you can clearly see the 30-year was, very constrained relative to them. I mean, if I hadn't reset the things, it'd probably be like that. The yield curve did flatten. Miss the explanation for why the new Fed chairman announcement. Oh, I'm not saying that's what's bearish for Bitcoin. I think that what is bearish for Bitcoin is rising interest rates. But Bitcoin is. I do not believe that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. I believe that Bitcoin is a risk asset. And I believe that that is more consistent with the evidence in terms of how it moves when certain things happen and so forth. It is a risk proxy, and ergo, it makes it more of a hedge against central banks than it does against inflation. So if the central banks are going to be raising rates and are going to have to be more responsible, that eliminates one of the drivers for Bitcoin, one of the fundamental drivers for Bitcoin. That's something that the institutional players are going to be like, well, okay, I don't want the Bitcoin. And then when you add on top of that Mt. Gox is supposed to announce how much Bitcoin they're going to sell at the end of the month and all that, Bitcoin has been on a little bit of a bearish run. Now, probably what happens is Tether prints more money. It goes right back up, right? Okay, it does look like the treasuries are bouncing there. So I think I made a good call on that support area, at least in the short term. So on the Kyle thing, I think it's very possible that the jury comes back quickly. The prosecutor did such a terrible job. I don't think that the jury is going to have a very hard time coming to a conclusion at all. Now, will it cause trouble? Maybe. There's going to be some loonies out there that are going to want to try and get all rowdy. Uzi thinks you're going to get a full conviction, huh? So cynical. There is no way that you go through that trial and they full conviction. No way. I'll bet $10 that he gets acquitted of all of the murder charges. There's no way that that jury isn't shitting themselves at the prospect of acquitting. I don't think that that's as big of a factor as people want to make it out to be. There's no way that you can do that when the evidence is so clear that it was self-defense. The Eric Chauvin trial went very differently, right? Was it Eric Chauvin? Maybe they will. We shall see. Will the media leak who they are and start harassing them? Here's the thing. There's no way to know if that is like on their minds. You know what I mean? I haven't been following the Arbery case very well, but it kind of sounds like that they might get away too. That one's a little different too, because that one is like such a bizarre technicality. They gonna move up more from here? It's on all of our minds, but none of theirs? No, I don't think so. I think that highly engaged, cynical far righties are concerned about jury intimidation, and I don't think that that's something that people of the general public do. And the kind of people that think about that sort of thing would probably have been weeded out from the jury process. So it's possible that they're thinking about that. But I also think that even if you have the jury is intimidating, it's going to be really, really hard still to get them to convict when the prosecution did such a poor job. That's the sort of a thing where when it's like it's kind of close, then maybe they would vote to save their lives. But when it's just so clear cut, you have the facts and it's just so clear cut, that I don't think so. I think there's no way they convict him. And I think that probably come back very quickly. So they sent them out yesterday, right? So, and if they decide that it was self-defense, then they don't have to consider the other charges. So it could come back really quickly. The funny thing is that even if they do convict, which again I think is really unlikely, it'll probably get overturned on appeal because of prosecutorial misdiscretion or whatever you call it. Because the prosecution did questioned his right to remain silent, among other things. Well, I find it curious here in the Treasury that so at first they flattened, but now they're steepening back up. You see how the 10 years yield is at 1.63 again, even though the 10-year regular 10-year is up quite a bit. Trading the measured move. No. The measured move is actually kind of interesting because there's like some real reasons why a move might be measured, but the people that are looking at that sort of a thing don't understand anything about the math behind why that happens. And trying to use like Fibonacci's is they're not effective, really. sobbing on the stand made for a powerful moment. I'm not sure the prosecution created or found that the powerful moment. Yeah, but you see, Uzi, he's making the cynical choice, right? He's saying there's no way that the jury convicts him or lets him free, because if they do, then the media will come after them. We should see. We should see what happens if they acquit him, and then their identities get released. Then one would have to say that they should have listened. They should have listened to Uzi and voted him guilty. Well, man. So that was a pretty good drop through to new lows in the 10-year. It wasn't a new low in the 5-year, but the 30-year just kind of dragged them down again. I wouldn't have been able to, close. Maybe it could have gotten $10. Cynicism has been, I don't know. There's been, there's on you would have gotten out on the Chauvin trial. I thought that on the Chauvin trial that there was a couple of things that made it seem like it could be close. And then they just straight up, convicted him on everything. And that one really did kind of feel like that the jury was afraid. I mean, how can we know that that's really what it was? But that one was a lot closer, though, right? Vince Bullard, the Tabor decision was made by the committee. Oh, okay, that's why we took another move down. Rate hikes are decided by a committee, and it's a big committee. Yeah. But again, it is. Listen, number one, you don't go into there and talk with all of the jurors and you be like, well, the prosecution was an absolute disaster. This kid is so absolutely innocent, but guys, we have to vote him guilty or our lives are in danger. Nobody's coming in there and saying that. People still try to be, they have to give themselves an excuse. Like, that's the thing. No juror is going to go in there and think, I'm going to send an innocent man to prison for life or even to death row because I want to save my own skin. Nobody says that. They will always come up with an excuse, a way to justify it in their mind that they're still the good guy, even though they're doing the wrong thing. Okay? Now, how do you do that when it is so obvious, given the evidence now, that the kid was acting in self-defense? There's just no way to justify it. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing is that how do you know that anybody on the jury is even aware that that's a threat? Do they realize that if they vote him innocent, that there will be riots? That they might not. They're sequestered. A lot of these people are not engaged. I mean, like, if I was called onto that jury, they would dismiss me. I know too much, right? Ma'am, I think that I hear fibs and I'm immediately like, it's probably bullshit, to be frank. So here's how I would approach a punk, or here's kind of my opinion on those sorts of things. Okay, use empirical evidence to base your trading. So does the book have statistics about every time that this particular situation has happened in the last X years, and what the average win rate for it is, and how much you tend to make on winners and how much you tend to make on losers, and you know, the favorable and adverse excursion on them, and how long you tend to be in the, you know, do they have all of these stats for it? Probably not, right? And then you have to ask yourself, why don't they have those stats? So because the person is not sophisticated enough to generate those kinds of stats? Because we have computers, we have every ability to go through historically and see how it works, see how it performs, right? So why don't they have that kind of information? It's either because they're not sophisticated enough to generate those kinds of stats, which I think is a big warning flag in and of itself, or two, the stats aren't actually that good, and so they don't want you to see it, or you wouldn't buy the thing. But more so than that, I can also tell you that just about any strategy that is premised on purely on the reading of a past price or the history of past price to predict what price will be in the future is probably total bunk in the future space. The noise that you have in the markets is larger than any kind of effect that could be caused by psychology or anything else that would affect the way that prices tend to go. The impact of large institutions moving money around is so much larger than any of the edge that you would be able to pull out of something like that it's insignificant. So again, that's why I always come into, you should look at things that are able to predict new orders. Does retail sales have a tendency to predict new orders? Yes, it does. Market tends to react very strongly to retail sales. The thing that's really wild to me about this trial is that if you watch the trial and then you watch the nightly news, what they say about the trial, it's like night and day. Like, there's all these people out there on the left that are saying, you know, this is an important case for black people. And I'm like, it was all white people involved. It was a white kid shot white guys. There's all these people out there that incorrectly believe that his victims were black. It's so weird, right? There's still kind of trying to push this narrative that he was some white supremacist that wanted to go and shoot. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But like there are some media outlets that are like just outright lying about what's going on, or what they'll often do is they'll say something that's like technically true, but is very much not, like, you know, like there's a big revelation, you know, that their star witness, the prosecution's star witness, basically destroyed their whole case, right? And the way that the media reported on it was completely different from, you know, they basically tried to ignore the fact that he had ruined their case. The Arbery murder is a much better avenue for discussions on racial justice, but it objectively has less interest. That is so true, Uzi. Why is that? Well, I think that when this one goes away, when Kyle gets acquitted, then the Arbery case will become a big deal. If the guys in the Arbery case get acquitted, then I think that there will be some problems, because I don't understand the Arbery murder that well, actually, to be honest. My understanding is that they were trying to do a citizen's arrest on him, and then he fought back on them, and so they ended up shooting him. So it kind of sounds to me like technically they might be within the bounds of the law, but that they really shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. Like, I'm not saying that what they were doing was illegal. I'm saying that what they were doing was stupid. You know what I mean? That's my understanding of the Arbery case. That's Bullard. I wouldn't mess around with the inflation target. I'm optimistic the United States will be able to achieve higher levels of productivity growth. Okay. I still want to see the 10-year back above 130.080. Even though we did get that good little extension there, it looks like they're coming back to 1.63 again. Okay, Bonk says the author is a retail trader, clearly not sophisticated enough to program it to automatically trade. With that said, though, you can't. Okay, so listen. You got to understand, we humans want to see things. Our whole, a large part of our survival, something that sets us apart from other animals, is that when we look at things, we try to find patterns in them, even if the patterns don't exist. And if you tell somebody, here's the setup, look for it. I've made money with it. Your brain will see it. And anytime that it happens and the setup fails on you, your brain just discounts it. So that's why you really cannot make a conclusion on a setup like that without backtesting it. Because here's the thing, Bonk, and here's why I say that. I have backtested literally thousands of technical strategies. I've done practically everything, okay? And they all, almost every single time, it's really quite stunning. It's really like, how is that possible? Every time it will come out that it is random. Okay. I have only found a few things, and they're almost always order flow type of setups where there is an actual statistical anomaly in there where I can go over a multi-year period and get a win rate of, like, given equal risk reward, get a win rate of like 55%. Okay. Like it's really insane. But that's the thing, is that actually when you go into empirical studies and scholarly studies, they have a pretty good explanation for why that happens. Okay. There's only so much edge in any one mispricing. Okay. If you have a signal that accurately predicts that price is going to move, given certain risk reward and so on and so forth. Okay. There's only so many contracts that you can take, in that market, right? If you take too many contracts, then you will move price too much and you'll create an inefficiency the other way. Okay. So there's only so many contracts that you can trade it with it. And the number of contracts that you can actually trade it with is actually way less than you would think. Everybody thinks it's like, oh, we're retail traders, we're never going to get to know. Like, especially when there's robots out there and high frequency trading firms trading these sorts of things, they're very, very easy to arbitrage out of the market. And meanwhile, you have these moves that large institutional traders are making that might have absolutely nothing to do with anything that move the market 10 times that, right? So what is the result that you get? The market tends to be very statistically efficient, but it's not informationally efficient. Like right now, we're moving down because of retail sales. But if the news comes out over the news squawk that Brainard has been is going to be Biden's Federal Reserve pick, are these treasuries going to skyrocket back out the other way? I mean, like anybody that's trading this today, I would hope, knows that that's a possibility that comes out today, right? Market's not very informationally efficient, but it's very statistically efficient, right? So we know why it happens, and knowing that, you really cannot afford to try and trade on a technical edge without actually doing a real data-based study on it. Like my opinion is that if you don't have the ability to backtest these sorts of things, that you shouldn't be trying to trade technical strategies, period. If you don't have the data, why would you put your money behind it? Yeah, I think that oh man, like here's the thing with their star witness is that star witness was guilty of everything that they were accusing Kyle of, right? He had a weapon on him when he wasn't legally allowed to possess one. He carried it across state lines, and then he lied to the police about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the testimonial story that you're giving me right now was one that I've seen a million times before too. only to see people turn around and fail on it. Like again, you really have to do a statistical analysis of it, because you might go in and you might find that the thing happens more often than not. And perhaps because of reasons that you don't realize, like for instance, they have a large stop set on it, right? But then what you don't see is how much money you lose when it fails. Or how many times in a row it can fail. That's another really big one. I actually think that like the number of times that a signal will fail in a row is probably a bigger destroyer of accounts than anything else for retail traders. So they're not really. So far, we're still not really seeing any change in the flow. I mean, based on that news for the retail sales, I'm not 100% convinced that retail sales has to affect interest rates significantly, like that it has a long-term impact on the path of interest rates. But the situation is now that people are worried about it, and there's a lot of people trading it, and so you get a move that has a lot of momentum anyways, I think is what might be going on right now. Nah, I'm really not convinced. So like the thing is that when Kyle gets acquitted, like I said, there will be people out there that will want to cause mischief, but I don't think that you will get widespread groups of people, because I think that the majority of people that are watching this are kind of sitting down and saying like, I've been misinformed on this issue. Robert Wright thinks that we can settle down on the inflation scares by around mid-May. Okay, so this is a much more interesting conversation, right? Because what that really comes down to is what you think is the cause of inflation, right? I think the thing that the pro-inflation, I don't want to call them pro-inflation. The thing that the hawkish crowd is trying to say is that this isn't just because of supply chain constraints. This is because you pumped so much money into the economy. This is what happens. You pump that much money into the economy, it will manifest itself in supply constraints, but that it kind of becomes self-sustaining, right? Whereas the dovish crowd doesn't think that the government spending so much money all at once really causes inflation, and they have a really good excuse to say that it doesn't because it's supply chain constraints. But here's the thing. We had big inflation scares back in, what was it, April, May, remember? And they said, oh, it'll settle down in 6 months. Like, the reason that they're freaked out about it now is because they said that it was going to go away and it didn't. In fact, it's gotten worse. And I actually would say maybe the inflation fears do dissipate, but I actually think that by around May that they might get worse before they get better. Sometime between now and May, things are probably going to get worse. That's from the information that I have. Robert Wright is also a complete clueless rube that just shills based off of his political ideology and really shouldn't be listened to for any kind of an educational take on anything economic. You should think of him as like the left's Rush Limbaugh, but for economics. He's that ideological about it. And he's dead wrong about things often. We've been running on free money for a while now. Easy credit, low rates. Could it be possible we're just adjusting a bit more and now there's a cost of doing business, or should it be? No. So I think that for a long time we've been fighting deflationary pressures. So what's really happening is, the government is putting a lot of money into things, but one, printing the money can be deflationary. Do you remember that discussion? Hold on, the squawk was kind of talking. So the more money that you print, there's this whole thing that, okay, you print a whole lot of money, it just goes into assets. It just goes into stocks and so forth. Like the rich people just put it into things, and those things actually should generate more activity in the economy. Whereas if you give the lay people money, they go out and they buy things with it, and that actually starts to increase the cost of goods. So that's kind of what a lot of people are saying is happening, is that because of the amount of stimulus that people were given and so forth, that is creating inflation, which I think is true to some extent. Okay, but when you just print the money and people go out and buy stocks with it, and meanwhile bonds are like the bonds are super low yields, right? If you're owning treasuries right now, you're losing money, right? You're losing like 3% a year, at least with the 5% inflation that you've gotten this year. Okay, like the real yield is negative. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that if you're going to retire on a fixed income, you have to invest even more. Okay, so there is a good case I believe, to argue that printing money can actually be deflationary. But it's kind of like, what else are you going to do? Because it's not just that the money printing. There's all of this global competition and all of these other things that are going on that are just in general deflationary. We have generational deflationary trends, right? And the whole thing that the economists have been saying is that environment is likely to persist for several decades, right? So now we come back to, but then they created all of these supply chain problems, and we actually did give people the money, and it leads to inflation. Now the problem that you have to think about is there's a couple of different takes on this. So the big one that you see the guys on the Federal Reserve talk about is inflation expectations being anchored. So what they're saying is that if people are watching the news and they understand what the current inflation rate is and everything, and their expectations about what inflation is going to do are accurate, then the supply chains will alleviate themselves and people will see that and they'll lower their expectations of inflation appropriately. But where you run into a problem, where you really start to run into a problem, is when people start to get expectations and they are actually like their expectations are running ahead of what is actually happening. Because when people get into that mode, they start raising prices all across the board, and then that's where inflation can really become unhinged, right? Now it's like it doesn't matter what you do, because it's this self-perpetuating cycle that is based purely on what people believe and not the reality on the ground, right? So there's that side of it. Then there's the other side of it is inflation leading to wage inflation, which is also a problem. So if we get inflation, and this January, February, when all of the blue collar worker, white collar workers, do their yearly performance reviews, and they say, well, because there was so much inflation this year, we're going to give you a 5% raise. So now everybody has 5% more money and they start spending it. And then that results in more inflation. And then you run into the wage inflation cycle. Now, so far, we haven't seen evidence of that happening, but I think that there's a really strong possibility that it will. So we kind of run into this situation where, again, even though there are some generational factors that seem to suggest deflation, including the money printing, there are other things going on that, at least for the current time, are overwhelming those with inflation. Professor David Wolf, I'm not too familiar with him. Is Jeff Snyder like the Alex Jones of finance? Maybe. He seems to know quite a bit about what he's talking about, and probably more than me on certain parts of interest rates. But he also says things that I know to be just objectively false. So I don't know. But here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to worry about those sorts of things, right? What do we have to worry about? Things that predict orders, because orders are what moves markets, okay? I can prove very quite clearly that the market front runs Federal Reserve asset purchases. So when these people come in and they say, the Federal Reserve tapering doesn't change anything, wrong. Okay. Orders move markets. If the Federal Reserve is reducing the number of orders that they're putting into the market by several $billion, it has an impact, and it's unavoidable. It is built into the way that markets work. Right. And we know, therefore, that interest rates will rise almost without question. It's just practically guaranteed. Co-director of the Innovation Policy Lab at the... Well, he sounds like he's got his political connection, that's for sure. Is the thing that I think is so interesting about the field of economics. A lot of people want to say that economists aren't a real science, okay? But they do real stuff, okay? Like, they understand real stuff. There's like complicated math that I don't really understand, that it would be really hard for me to teach you guys that these guys in economics understand like the back of their hand, okay? They know stuff, and there's real science behind looking at the data and seeing how well the data conforms to their models and understanding the math and the implications of it and everything, right? Okay, there's something that they're doing that's real. Okay, but there's also this really strong connection between economists and political parties. And there are still wildly differing schools of thought in economics. So, and I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that our understanding of economics is really quite naive still, and there's a lot of noise, you know? How's it going, guys? Did I miss anything? No, we were talking about inflation. I'm kind of sitting here stalling because I haven't taken any trades today. when we got a pretty good move off of the retail sales, but the way that the book was and everything, I don't think that it would have made sense for me to have taken a trade. And since that time, it's given me 10. That's not necessarily the optimal trade for me, so I'm okay with kind of stocking it here. But I'm also a little bit concerned about a Brainard Federal Reserve announce coming, and we're getting a dovish move here. Take a trade. Well, we might be coming up on a period where I might try and do something. We'll see. I think that if they announce Brainard, that I think they'll do it after the S&P 500 opens, right? Vaccine against Alzheimer's disease could be on the horizon. What? To cut 1930s jobless, FDR taxed corporations and the rich. Government used money to hire many millions worked than would now. Okay, so yeah, it's not so simple. Okay, so if that's the sort of a thing that he's saying, then he kind of sounds like a political hack too. Because here's the thing, okay, you really can't, and I think a lot of people make this mistake. Everybody wants to come in and make a really big grand conclusion about how policy was conducted during FDR's term, and you know, what was the thing that got us out of the Great Depression. And the reality is that there was many different policies on many different fronts that had differing impacts. For instance, I think that there is a good amount of evidence, or at least many people argue, that the work programs that were created by the government, like building the dams and things like that, didn't really do anything. And that, in fact, it was maybe actually a net negative, because it took away investment from private industries. Okay. But and there was the taxes. But, you know, everything that I've read about the taxes is that even though they increased taxes on people, that like the actual amount of money that got taxed doesn't change. But I think that something that was an even bigger factor for getting the United States out of the Great Depression was John Eccles and the policy changes that they made with monetary policy at the Federal Reserve. That was when they really figured out the framework, that we use today. So you get what I'm saying? It's not so simple. FDR taxed corporations and rich, and he used that money to hire millions. Was that really what got us out of the Great Depression? Or was it undoing the thing that got us into the Great Depression, which was not printing enough money, was what got us out of the Great Depression, that we started printing more money? Right? See, here's the problem. Here's the problem that we have in trading that you have to deal with, okay? You have to do your own principle work. I was watching Chamath or something on TikTok. It was showing him to me. He was saying that. He says, your own principle work. I don't know what he means by principle work, but I really think that that's the deal, because the problem that we have is that the people that are going to be put in front of you as influencers are not necessarily the people you want to be listening to. They really just aren't. Like think about it. Like, especially in the cryptocurrency space, okay? If you're a big whale or whatever it is, okay, and you're looking at doing something and you're going to be talking to influencers, who do you think you're going to talk to? Are you going to go and talk to the guy that has a ton of followers and is really engaging and will do whatever you ask him to do as long as you give him enough money? Or are you going to go and give it to speculator Seth, who is very deeply skeptical about cryptocurrencies in general and is warning people about all of the problems, is extremely independent and viciously anti-scams, etc., etc., etc.? No. You're not going to give him that opportunity. No, because you don't know what he's going to do. You're going to give him the money, and then he's going to go and say, "Oh yeah, this is a scam. NFTs are total bullshit." Right? No, you're not going to pay him. So what do? You give all of the money and the resources to the shills. And the same thing happens in stocks, frankly. So again, the people that you want to listen to aren't necessarily going to be the ones that are going to be put like front and center to you, right? The politicians. Who do you think the politicians want you to listen to? The person that is really teaching you like the deep down dirty basics of economics and all of the equations and all of the numerous factors that were involved in a particular economic outcome in a historical context, and all of the different theories about that and all of the research studies that have been done about that? Or do you want them to watch the person that says, hey, we should do progressive policy because we did this progressive policy this one time and it worked, right? Of course you're going to do the lighter guy, right? That's who the politicians want. That's why you literally just can't rely on, humans are like social learners, right? Like the way that the baby understands like what is acceptable behavior and what is not is he'll do something and then he'll watch his parents' faces to see how they react, if they react approvingly or disapprovingly, right? He'll watch what their parents are doing and then he'll copy them, right? This field, you can't do that because everything that's being pushed to you is probably bullshit and you need an advantage anyways. So what's your only choice? You have to do the work yourself. You have to understand the things yourself, and you have to be nuanced, right? I don't think that, I don't get the engagement necessarily that maybe I should, because I try to be nuanced about it, right? I don't come in here and I say, this is like the straight up thing about it. I try and go through, here's everything that we know about it, and here are the different theories about it, and here's where I kind of come down on that spectrum. Most people don't want to listen to that, but if you want to make money, that's kind of the approach that I think you need to have. I'm talking about everything from billionaires to babes in arms and back again to books. But like, that's the thing that really makes it hard, is that the subject matter is hard. It takes some real brains, I think. Like when I read about calculating interest rates, like when I read about how do you go from a forward interest rate, or how do you go from the on the run interest rate to the forward interest rate, it's I wouldn't be able to draw it out to you from memory, that's for sure. Maybe I think that I want to get to that point, but I don't completely understand it. There's a bunch of integral math and everything, and I'm like, no, I forgot all of that math like 10 years ago. No A's today. I probably offended him too much, but you know what? Quite frankly, with the way that he was talking, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's not really contributing. So, because his whole thing was he was making a big fallacy that I really think that I'm really trying hard to get people away from, right? Past performance is not indicative of future results. Why don't you use empirical evidence to make your decisions first? Okay, you can't go and look at one person's performance over a short time period and make any kind of conclusion off of that, because it's anecdotal. Right? Does technical analysis work? Well, the empirical evidence that we have says that most people who try to use it fail. But then we have a lot of evidence to suggest why they fail. Because there are things about the market that basically make it so that technical analysis is never really going to work. Right? You can make money from taking on risk, though, but that's kind of a dubious venture. But you know what? I think I was seeing, was it Taleb that was saying this? In reality, all trading strategies are kind of like dealing fat tails in some way or another, right? They're all trying to set you up into a situation where you're going to win most of the time, or you're going to make money most of the time, and then there's going to be a period where you just get slaughtered. And the whole key is to avoid that period where your strategy just falls apart. But I think that he's taken it even a step further, and he's able to come in and say, here's where the risks are, and you can actually kind of use that to predict unpredictable events. And I think I see what he means, although I need to read his books. I put that on the list right after the statistics book. But right now I'm reading Dune. So we've been having plenty of discussion with Adam, though. But he might throw a little, like he did before. But I'm just, when he starts to argue against like because he was trying to argue. By the way, I went and did a little bit about that. He was trying to argue about the point that the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are highly correlated. I'm like, what? Let me show you here real quick. Bring back in bed courts, because I was doing a little bit of back testing, but then I ran out of time, because with CQG data, when the exchange closes, you don't really get it anymore. And Q1221. Okay, so you see like how often, even on a 10-minute rolling basis, how correlated they are. Interestingly enough, though, it can go quite negative, and I was starting to test how often can the correlation go negative and see if I could trade off of that, because when I just did it to 0, I was getting too many entries. But I think that I need to do it as like a cross above, because I think what it was doing is it was like anytime that it was down here, it was taking trades, and that's why I was taking too many. And it ended up being like random, so... Crypto alerts, hundreds of billions lost as top cryptocurrencies crash, says Forbes. Are they really treating this move in Bitcoin over the overnight as like a real crash? Ethereum, Solano, Cardano tumble in crypto crash. That's down 8% in Bitcoin. Others 7 to 10%. What we don't know. It's not clear why the cryptocurrency market is crashing, though there are several factors that can contribute. Chinese authorities renewed efforts to crack down on cryptocurrency mining Tuesday, slamming the energy consumption and carbon footprint of the process. China's earlier crackdown on mining saw cryptocurrency miners flee. I think that the cryptocurrency market handled that one exceptionally well, by the way. Many of whom landed in the U.S. Another possible reason could be responses to President Joe Biden's infrastructure bill, which includes provisions for potentially regulating and taxing cryptocurrency. Yeah, but that's not for like 4 years. Well, okay. Those are good theories, though, that I hadn't... That last one is a good theory that I had kind of dismissed too early. I wonder if I come in here and I change this correlation to be more like 100? Yeah. Better. And there you go. They're pretty heavily correlated. Can you make money from the correlation between the two of them? I don't know if I can make money from the correlation from the two of them, but how do you guys think that arbitrage strategies work, man? Somebody's making money from the correlation. I guarantee you. You might need to be really fast to do it, though. This is a big stack there at 06. Cash out to enable Bitcoin Taproot address compatibility. So I've read about Taproot and I was not all that impressed with it. It doesn't really solve the real problems in Bitcoin. That's the problem with that one, but I digress. Should I be going short in the treasury now? Well, we are open. I think that's a tough trade right here. Bloomberg says the problem for investors is SPACs often underperform traditional IPOs. You know what I think the problem with an IPO is, or with SPACs, like with the Trump SPAC, is like, yeah, like they made it so that we could trade it right then and there, but then you've got to like wait for months for stuff to happen. And like nobody wants to hold it during all that nonsense. Oh man, I should have taken it at 635 right there, man. Well, I could put some liquidity out there and see if what happens. S&P 5. Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll see. I don't like the spot, but they're looking pretty good right now. Anwar, good morning. How are you? Yeah, it's not a very good spot, relatively speaking. A better spot would have been right on the open. Could still work. Anwar says, good morning, fine, thanks. The E-mini keeps on pushing. Slowly but surely. Oh, there was a little bit of a stop run there. President Biden, if you live in one of the 10 million homes that have lead pipes, you face clear danger to your child's health and your health. My bipartisan infrastructure law will start to replace 100% of our lead pipes and service lines. Still doing the PR on the stimulus bill, eh? You would think maybe with the S&P 500 on a relatively strong bull run that the treasuries would be coming back here a little bit, but they're really not. Oh yeah, that's really running through now. Okay, a little bit of iceberging there in the 88 area. That's okay though, because I think you should still get another little push and we could get filled. Dang. Well, maybe I should have taken 30. I had the right idea. Feel like the opportunity is past now. See what they do here around this 10 area, because that was a little bit of a step. You don't use the market profile for the treasury for the context? Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that I don't look at it, but a lot of people will have this kind of idea that like it's going to go to a previous day's point of control, or like if we're on this step, I want to take it. I don't really think of it like that. I think that the volume, that the profile can kind of deceive you sometimes. But I do want to know, how they react to this area from 14 to 09 or so, where there wasn't a lot of liquidity when they traded through it because it was after the news. So that's what makes me interested in it. And in this case, you can see it on the volume profile, right? As futures traders, you pay same commission and have same contract margins even while... So the margins are different for day trading and holding it overnight. But yeah, the commission is pretty much the same. Commission is just a cost every time that you do the transaction. Okay, so just as I kind of suspected, the treasury kind of backed off there. And I did get the fill in the ES, so that's good. Well, that's the only time I clicked today, too. Cool. Well, if I just ended the day right there, then I'd be pretty happy with myself, right? Netflix looks bullish to you? I don't mean to hold just like what it... Yeah, it doesn't change. I've never heard anything about that it changes. I'm so sleepy because of cold weather. It is getting cold. It's still enough that if I turn my heater on in the garage that I get sweaty, but Rivian gains 8.3% to surpass Volkswagen market value. The Rivian thing is getting kind of silly. I saw somebody post the other day. They were saying that, if Ford had just bought all of Rivian and then repackaged themselves, like got rid of Ford and repackaged themselves as Rivian, because it's becoming worth more than all of the other automakers. And Ford has been moving up because they own Rivian. It's just, it's a bubble, man. It's a bubble. I tell you what. Overvalued concept, yeah. Unfortunately, it being in a bubble doesn't give us any kind of expectancy on when it's going to end. It's not hard to go and do a traditional valuation on a particular asset and say that asset doesn't match that traditional valuation. But that has a very tenuous relationship with when it's going to come back to reality. Because why? Because orders move markets, not valuations. Valuations can lead some people to buying it, but apparently it's a relatively minor factor. Bitfinex, little known fact, after the New York Attorney General made it public that Bitfinex was $850 million in the hole, Bitfinex was bailed out by Block 1 to the tune of $500 million. Block 1 wash traded EOS during the EOS ICO on Bitfinex. Oh, okay. So the 30-year has actually come back a bit more than the others. So a little bit of flattening again. But I'm not seeing like the low latent liquidity and all the signs and stuff here at 09 and 08 have, even though they are just kind of chilling there. Which kind of suggests to me that like they've just balanced back out and they don't see a reason to do anything from there. By the way, the price that I got out at 80. Oh yeah, I went like 10 points more than that. Okay, cool. But I think I have reasons to use the target that I did. The ECB's wunsch for inflation to reach 2% in 2023, it won't take much. Wow, that's very comforting. Thank you. On this move back up, you have to wonder how many of them are trying to trade. How many of them are trying to trade Brainard? Excuse me. A little rain and snow, but a big drop in temperatures for Utah today. No. I wanted to stay warm. There's a big order here in the 5-year. Okay. Well, there's my trade right there, man. Crap. I have to watch it way more vigilantly if I want to take those trades. Well, let's take a look around. Let's see if anything else has changed here. The dollar came back. So just like with treasuries, the yen did not so much though. Bitcoin is trying to make a recovery here, but that so far that just looks like a pullback. And gold took a hit off of the stronger dollar. Not too bad of a hit. Also, oil took a hit. Oil took a hit, but it looks like the 6J is like the most active thing right now. That's interesting. I suppose for fun I could do it over here. My FOMO trade. I'd be way more interested if it came back to here though. Somewhere in here. Should have taken it. I could have taken 3. I could have taken in one spot 6-3. It gave me many opportunities. I was thinking about it and I put my order at 635. So that one wasn't even that I didn't take the trade. It was that I didn't get the fill at all. Well, it feels awfully quiet now. We might get bored with this market, and then the Brainard announcement hits, and just be like, what? What the? We'll have to watch the spread here, though, because a little bit of flattening, but the spread's actually been all over the place here. I haven't seen the spreads change this much in a long time. Fed's Bullard says whether President Biden picks Powell or Brainard as Fed chair, there will be a lot of continuity. Inflation is quite high and well above the Fed's target. Would like the Fed to be more hawkish in the next coming meetings. Markets are past the taper tantrum and the Fed could move faster. Retains optionality in the pace of taper. Asked about higher terminal rate between 3 to 4%. Replied saying that this is not his base case. If the Fed was to move more hawkishly sooner, it would allow them to go more shallow later. Even if inflation comes back down lower, the Fed is still in a good place for next year and can keep policy rates lower. Current Fed policy is putting upward pressure on inflation, does not see neutral rates rising above pre-pandemic levels. Reiterates that he sees 2 hikes next year, agrees with the market. There are other ways the Fed could act hawkishly, including signaling they could hike before the taper concludes. Another way would be to allow the balance sheet to run off after tapering. 10-year being a little hanging back there. I'm very curious. I haven't seen that in a while. Some strong stacks, but then it didn't go. They got buried. Look at that. Oh, do we have retail inventories at the top of the hour? That will be interesting. I was just thinking about Captain Price saying overvalued concept Rivian. I don't think that has anything to do with the concept. I think it has to do with like who's backing it. Like, isn't Google involved somehow? That's really what that's all about. Okay. S&P moving there. The baby is at the door. Stacey Abrams on Monday did not directly respond to a question about a potential presidential bid, instead saying that she is focused on getting voting rights legislation passed. Yeah, I would be a little concerned if she became president, because she just has like no experience in anything. Win a race first place. Let's see here. Bank of England gilt purchase operation fully covered. 2.48 billion were offered. That's interesting. The Economist says even if he is judged to be innocent, it is hard not to conclude that Kyle Rittenhouse made extraordinarily stupid decisions that night and that they resulted in the deaths of 2 people. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I suppose that you could say don't go to where there are rallies happening, political riots, but maybe I'll get my 35. No, you didn't hit into that. That's okay. Wait, shouldn't that should have turned into a limit order there. M-Box Wave? I'm not familiar with that one. Maybe a little bit of sleepiness coming over me now. It's just a little too quiet for the day. Okay, that actually did fill me? Okay, cool. Let's reset things right there. Interesting. Where was the click? Was that 07? Yeah, something changed there. Whether they pulled a bid. Sorry, they pulled an ask. Yeah. Oh, it wasn't that they pulled an ask. It was that he got filled. He got filled, but then they didn't go. There's something going on here. There's a little bit of back and forth that for sure in the 10-year. I don't know. It still seems pretty quiet, so that might be nothing, but somebody really wants to sell it at 33, huh? Somebody took him. Google issues warning for 2 billion Chrome users. What? So here comes business inventories. I'm going to cancel my order. Now multiple hacks have been confirmed. Google published news in a new blog post where it revealed an eye-popping 25 new vulnerabilities have been discovered in the last 2 weeks. It rates 7 of these as high-level threats. Oh boy. So make sure that you upgrade your Chrome. Okay. Those numbers sound maybe a little bit hawkish, but I don't know. The market's not really reacting to them too much. And a little step down there, I guess. Yeah, that is... Oh boy. Not what I wanted. But I can see somebody is stacking it up as we go. And it is kind of the move I was expecting. Look at that. So on that sim trade, how many? 5? Was a solid amount of trend that came through there in the treasury, though. Yeah, give me that. Okay. If I was so lucky, I don't think that I will be. Yeah, like look. So just look at the way that the bid is stacking as it comes back up. There's a lot more liquidity being placed on the bid behind us as we move. I'm not sure if it's going to be steepening or flattening. It kind of seems like it's more steepening, which isn't optimal for us, but look, now this time they stack up 4,500, 3,000. I think we're getting some strong indications that new players are coming into the market here. I'm kind of wondering if this turns through. I don't know. Without the Brainard announcement, I'm not too sure how far this really goes. It sure looks like some really favorable order flow for us, though. Look at that. And see, it's not taking a whole lot of volume to take the offers out either. I'm seeing the 6J starting to try and move here too. Are we seeing the dollar move as this occurs? Not so much. I am seeing gold is still moving quite a bit. Feel that sleepiness coming over me a little bit still. S&P back to the 90 area. 4690. I should note that 10 was the previous pivot high. So Price says he's almost asleep. If I'm not getting the stimulation, it kind of comes over me, man. Yep, NAHB Housing Market Index 83, expected 80. Yeah, the market, those are all numbers that the market are generally doesn't react very strongly to. So I kind of thought that, I don't know. It was kind of funny because I think what happened here actually was they were all waiting for that news just to be sure. And then once they got that news, then they started their meta order buying. Right? I think there's got to be a large player out there thinking the same thing that I am, that they're going to announce Brainard like any minute now, and it's going to go, giddish. Oh, what? The UAE recently decriminalized extramarital sex, and the Saudis say their hotels no longer ask for marriage certificates. You have to, like, if you were staying in a room with a woman, you had to give them your marriage certificate. Really? That is pretty wild. I shouldn't bash it. That's their culture, but man, wow. Peter Brand says, I'm taking a break from tweeting about cryptos and Bitcoin. I will focus my comments on such markets as T-notes, wheat, silver, equities. It's time to spend far more time in an audience with adult manners and thoughts. Yeah, I feel ya, Peter. But here's the thing: is that you ain't gonna get as much attention as you will talking about cryptocurrencies. I don't know why I follow this guy. I don't know who he is. This is turning into a really strong trend, isn't it? I really wish that I had caught in 3 or 30, though. I was still waiting when it was there. I was waiting like, these might come to 35. Like, they were really close, right? And they didn't film me, and then I ended up getting in 10 ticks lower. Is that up on the day? Oh, you know what? I never did my freaking... So I've been trying to get this stupid... Oh, maybe it's the... Something wrong with my cron tab. Well, I'll just run that. when you tell me that Tesla's at 1,050, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what they opened at, so I don't know if that's a big deal or not. And I'm too lazy to open up the charts and look. Tesla gets sued by, is that really, they're up 3.5%? I thought that I was reading that story last night, and I thought it was a little bizarre. Like it seemed like it was a clear-cut thing, but it was like, how can Tesla say they don't have to pay that? Like, okay. You don't think that JP Morgan's going to go after that? Because if they just let them get away with it, then everybody would try and get away with that. They can't let you get away with that one. AMC is accepting Shibcoin now. Good grief. They understand their audience. I get it now. Mm-hmm. Hey, Stick, how are you? I haven't seen you in a bit. You had a quick glance at the lawsuit and it seems pretty clear cut. So then why didn't they pay? I don't know. Maybe they're like, I bet you they're not going to do anything. Let's just not pay it. And now they finding out. Doing good. That's why I'm back, because it's been so while. We've been having fun over here in the micro treasuries, I think. Among registered New York City voters, 64% said outdoor seating for restaurants was an important use of curb space in their neighborhood, including 78% of voters in Manhattan. Okay. Financial Juice reporting business inventories rise more than expected in September. Yes, you told us that when you re-announced the numbers, but the market didn't care. So just want to note, they're not doing the same thing at 10.5, at least not yet. Yahoo Finance. The part of the metaverse that we're most engaged with is the play-to-earn ecosystem. If there's an economy where the users can invest and make an earnings out by owning digital assets and trading them, it could become a huge business. I'm not so sold on their view of the metaverse. You guys, like, here's the thing about the metaverse, guys. I don't want to get this big old VR headset on my face and these things on my arms and have to be like running around on some treadmill and stuff. The thing I like about the computer is that I can just sit here and relax and do anything that I want, that my mind's imagination is in, because a mouse and a keyboard is a really great interface into that world that allows me to do things that I can't do in this world. And now they want to try and make the online world like the real world. Like, no, screw that. That's what we're getting away from. I don't want to run. I would rather run in real life. You get what I'm saying? And then they're all, oh, this is a great profit. So I'm sitting here going, oh, great. They're going to take pay to win to a new level. That's what they're going to do, right? It's going to be like, well, you make so much money for every kill that you get in our game. But you know what? If you bought this weapon, you would make even more. Hey, look, you got to spend money to make money. You know it's coming. it's exploitative. I don't think when the metaverse comes around that gamers are going to like what they're trying to make it. I really don't. So now we're getting some better stacking at 10, half, and 11. And the 30-year the 5-year is starting to push into, well, it is flattening a little bit. The 30-year seems to be leading, but overall they've been fairly equal today. So I'm a little unsure, to be honest with you guys, how far this move could go. I mean, 21 is possible. Or 08 in the 30-year. I mean, that seems like there's still a lot left in this move. But the catalyst that we're waiting for, I haven't seen yet. I'm going to have to try and we need to stay vigilant, because if it happens, it might be fast, and I probably want to get out right when it happens. I would like someone to invent an exercise bed, strap me in at night, and the bed moves my arms and my toes and my muscles, and then moves my legs around and tones my calves, and I wake up in great shape. Well, what you can do, Win, is you can get one of those STEM devices. You know what I'm talking about? It's like electromagnetic. You put like the little patch on your arm, and it sends electromagnetic pulses into your arm. Yeah. Doesn't really work to make you stronger, but you know, they're fun. I think they're fun. So a little bit more volume trading there at 12. Oh, geez. I'm seeing so much stuff lately in the political world about Beto O'Rourke. And it's like, no, he failed. His presidential bid was a dismal failure. Stop trying to make Beto happen. It's not going to happen. I don't want to hear about him anymore. He doesn't excite me. He's not fun to talk about. Like he's like a Jeb Bush boring. You know what I mean? Least right now. Maybe he runs for governor. Maybe it would be more interesting. I will look at those. Yoga is pretty gentle exercise, but even that requires some discipline. Yeah, it does. That's what I need to do, man. Tuesday nights, I need to go. Okay, I'm going to go and take a look and see if they're doing yoga classes tonight. And we'll convince my mom to watch the baby while we go to yoga. I don't know if my wife would let me go to yoga by myself. That would be dangerous. But I don't know. She's not in particularly flexible shape right now. for reasons I won't go into. $13. I mean, so the 5-year is now about to touch a new high. There it is. Okay, 104. This is still going, man. It's crazy to me that we could have possibly gotten like 40. I was like, what? I was a little too cautious on getting in, but I think I got the call right. Now, if we break these highs, we might see some fun stuff. Beto is goofy. That summer he posted hours of video of himself roller skating. I don't know. I just think from a political perspective, like I feel like that. I don't know. It just feels like the media is trying to get me to like him, and that there's not actually anything likable about him, right? Like it's all a mirage. Like, the thing is they'll all start talking big about him, and then he fails dismally. Okay, what was the explanation for that long? I am long because I think that they're going to announce a Brainard appointment. That's why I took it. And that's why I was like, wasn't sure about the price and really was trying to get 35 and ended up getting 25. Fundamentals, yeah. My philosophy right now is if I'm taking a trade, I should have some sort of a larger edge that is supposed to be able to predict future orders. Like, I'm not really, I mean, I watch what the liquidity is doing to try and gain a more advantageous price. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Clearly, I mean, when you started thinking about it, though, Lucas, that it seems like it has to be that, right? Because they didn't move until after the housing numbers. The market ignored the housing numbers. In fact, I think that the numbers might have been a little bit hawkish, or could have justified some hawkishness, but it was like the market kind of didn't really do anything, and then we started to see it. So this is very clearly a meta order that they waited until after the news event to start executing. So now we have to start thinking, why are they executing this meta order? And we don't have any of the other things that we would normally have in this market when we've had bullish moves, like an auction or anything like that. So I think that the best explanation is Brainard. But we'll see. We'll see if they're able to break those new highs in the 30-year and the 10-year, because we might get some exciting stop runs here, right? The situation is there, right? We already broke lows. We had a hard reversal. So there's got to be plenty of people that are getting caught short. It's kind of against the longer term prevailing trend. They stopped at a longer term support level that was there at 08, right? So we might get some as she goes setups. Let's see. It is still, even though we've had some good trend, they still are kind of being somewhat quiet, which is interesting. What the hell? Some of this, you know what? Maybe I should just remove my local news stations from my feed, because some of the stories that come through on the local news are just like, what? That happened here? That's so sad. Summit County man accused of brutally beating a puppy with a pool cue. Ugh. I get why they're reporting that. I really want to click that link. Okay, tick up, but the 13.5 has got some size on it. I didn't really see, like, I would have preferred that 13 like reloaded, right? But now you can see 13 is offer is reloading. we ingest probiotics because we don't eat enough dirt anymore. Yeah, I don't know if there's enough. I get where he gets that sentiment from. I don't know if there's enough evidence to support that. There's definitely an iceberg there. This is one where we could do with this again. No sad puppy stories, right? My wife has been falling into that trap with, like, I don't know, just reading it on Facebook or something, and she's telling me these stories, these sad stories, and I'm like, I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about that. Okay. It looks like it's going to be a 5K there at 13. The 30-year backed off a little bit more than the others. Let's reset it there so that we can kind of track the spread a little bit better. Okay. I wonder if the buyers are just like, okay, fine, if you're going to give us that many contracts here, we'll take them, because they're not really putting a lot on the bid at 13. Okay, that is a stronger bid there at 13. They hit it and pulled 1941 to trade down to tick 12.5 now. The S&P 500 is starting to do something. I'm also starting to see the 6J maybe move a little bit. The way that played out there at the highs is kind of reminding me of many times where I'm looking for new highs and it doesn't work out, huh? I'm having flashbacks. Yeah, you remember those days, Lucas, yeah? It's always, here's the new highs, it's going to go, and then it doesn't do it. Well, the other two are iceberging now, too. That's a good tick. Reloading there at 14. I could maybe pull it to 14.5 there now, but I'm going to take the fill there because look there, yeah. They're having a little bit of a discussion there. 13.5. So I think the guy that's buying it is kind of going like, I don't think you really want to do that. Why are you being so stubborn about it? Like that's enough volume they're offering at 13.5 that you kind of have to wonder a little bit, right? I mean, this was a really big move up too, by the way. Like the total net volume to get up here was like 30,000 contracts. So that could be some profit taking. Yeah. That definitely could be some profit taking. That was like a good new high, but it came back quickly, didn't it? And it's not the overnight high. The overnight high was 14.5. Curve still really slight, but for the moment, steepening with the 5-year leading it. See the 5-year ticking up there. Bid not too confident, it seems. P&L. I've only taken this one trade. I did take a actually I take that back. This is my third trade, but it's the only live one. If you add all of them together, it's $171, but this one in the 10-year might just fall apart on me, right? I'm feeling a little antsy about it because the flow is putting up a really tough fight up here. And I can remember many times where I really thought that they were going to break new highs, and it didn't. There was a period where it seemed like every day they went to go and break new highs, and then it didn't happen, and it was so frustrating to me, right? So I'm a little PTSD here, I think. But the fundamentals, the theory that got me into this was more about Brainard. So, and that hasn't happened yet. It might not happen until much later in the day. And then I'm thinking timing. The timing was good, like 8 to 8:45. Yeah. You know, like we should expect there to maybe be a little bit of a pullback here. Alligator says, I suspect technical traders dumping there. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, the overnight high was 14.5. So, and there does appear to be a decent amount of technical trading today. Like when they went, that was really aggressive, and then they only got one tick out of it. So, I don't know, man. The right call may be to just get out. Should we use Brainard in the title? Sure. I'll put a limit order there. Although I haven't had too much success with those today, have I? Hey, Bob, how are you? Will Brainard become Fed president? Question mark. I'm doing okay. I'm a little disappointed in what just happened there. Could just be a standard pullback. Like, I think I'll take another one right there. There's a decent amount of orders being placed and everything, like just pretty consistent amount of, you know, blip, 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 blip. Tried to clear it there at 11.5 and it didn't go. So how much is that going to be? 23 and it goes bid for only a moment. He's not putting much on the bid. There's a lot there on 12. It's kind of interesting how the tables have turned, isn't it? Now it's the offer with the big offer and the bid's not looking all that confident. They're kind of playing there in the 30-year. That's a game that you don't see very often where the bid and ask are like really even. They took 19. Okay. That might be a significant change, but let's see. No. Iceberg there at 14. I think at this point the flow that we're showing is very mixed. The edge they were trading on suggests that it could keep going, but the order flow is very mixed. So we are a little bit of, well, I don't want to say gambling, but we're definitely like holding on the risk right now. Yeah. Okay, 30-year is able to get back up to 19. Still not able to hold it though. Bigger bid at 11.5. Saw a little sweep there in the 5-year. Or sorry, the ES. Man, where did I get 5-year from? We got 15 minutes left. I kind of see some currency flow. Looks like it's a major factor here. Like the 6J is following the treasury pretty closely. Gold has just been thrashing all over the place here most of the morning. Like there was that initial down move and then it's just up and down, up and down. Okay, so a little bit pulled there at 12. 3,000 by 3,000 pulls. Offer pulls, but they didn't take. So you can see there that 30-year keeps stepping up to 19 and then getting taken back down. But the bids are taking it, the orders. So Rick, how are you? That's welcome to the stream. And the 12 thickens back up a little bit as they trade it down. First time I see you use bracket orders. Well, I'm just trading sim there in the treasury, but I don't know why I have that order down at 08 still. I kind of made a mistake though because I bought it like 13, I think, and then I didn't get the 14 offer. But then I'm like willing to add some down in here. But I don't know. So far, they don't seem to be cooperating, do they? Now, 8:45 is past now, so you'll kind of see if I would want to see something happen in the next 15 minutes or so here. If there's going to be another leg in this meta order, which I think there will be. I think what if it's about Brainard, that's a very speculative trade, so it might not happen, but there's a good reason to believe that we're going to see another leg up. Okay. There's a little bit of fight, but the bid held there in the 5-year. Iceberging even. But the 30-year. But that may just be because we're getting steepening again. Do you trade crude oil? I don't. I think now that you've got micro oil, the big problem with oil was it moves. But I think that it would be a great instrument for retail traders to trade. Because there's a lot of information to know, right? Remember, market is pretty statistically efficient, but not very informationally efficient. So the places where there's going to be more opportunities for us are going to be places where we have news and things changing and new information coming in all the time that isn't necessarily correctly priced into the market, right? So, treasuries, I think, is the best instrument of that nature because it's so economically sensitive. But oil is in there too. It's just is a completely different set of things, right? You've got to understand OPEC politics and the way that companies are, adding and removing supply and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Live Action trades it. I think there's some people in this room that they don't just trade it. They've made some good money from it. So oil can be a good thing to trade. And even with micros, you're still going to need probably a larger account than the S&P 500 than you would to trade the S&P 500. But, to that point, there's some problems with trading the S&P 500. I don't think that there are quite as many opportunities to trade on that kind of information as the S&P 500. The S&P 500, because it is an index of stocks, there's all sorts of other weird behavior that goes on. Maybe you could discover an inefficiency or a tendency that the S&P 500 has simply because it's an index. But I've been unable to discover such a thing, nor have I found any research talking about any of that. The best I've found is calculating what all of the constituents say. Yeah, well, the treasury market has really seems to have slowed down here now. You're still seeing some market orders hit into 14 and a quarter in the 5-year, but other than that, it's pretty meh. Seems like when we got that new high that was like the exciting thing, and then I don't know, somebody took profits and it's over. Maybe the move that we caught had nothing to do with Brainard at all, and they were trading it on a more of a mean reversion trade, and we just got lucky. That's a possibility. Well, the 10-year didn't seem to be too interested in further downside, but the 30-year is. That said, the 30-year is having the volume trade at 16, which is common. I don't know if this is a trade that I can hold all day is the problem. Like, if it's going to be a Brainard news and there's going to be like a pop, I need to be sitting there watching it ready to click, And if that's not going to happen in the next 10 minutes, I need to get out. This I can leave on and see what happens, but this one, let's just let's get out of it here. No. Well, that's not what I would like to see. Trying to find a room focused on crude. Well, there is. I mean, we do have the Discord. I don't know though. I like for that sort of a thing. I think that at the first, at least, you want to learn it on your own. You know, just look at all of the different reports in the news and read a lot of news. Courses, no. And then it looks like the 5-year might be trying to make another push. As in how to understand, I don't know, man. But like that's the thing is I've never really seen any good resources that really tell you about what's going on in the market. And I think the reason that you tend to get that is because what's going on in the market is so very specific to that market, right? Like the best thing to do is to get news squawks and CNBC and so forth and read every story that they post about oil, right? We're in a room where they had live contact from the floor. That's interesting. And I definitely don't understand oil. Some of the politics and stuff that go on in oil are very confusing to me. Like, I think one of the things that's going on right now is that Saudi Arabia is really mad at the Biden administration, and so they're keeping the output low because of that. But like, how do I sort out that that's what's happening compared to like other things? I don't know. Telling you, you got to do your own work. Find primary sources. You know, if there's somebody out there that really knows their stuff, how did they find what they did? Right? I had missed an opportunity to get there out a little bit earlier, but it does look like we're getting some steepening and that might be kind of holding us back. Ah. Okay, well, we'll see if I can get out of it, but I got to get going, guys. So, I will see you tomorrow. Keep an eye out again. Brainard announcement is supposedly imminent. I don't know if that necessarily means today, but it's a good bet. But I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.